Welcome to another episode of What Remains, a fan podcast where we dive into the collection of the Fredericksburg Area Museum. I'm Kylie, and actually you're just stuck with me today. Clarissa is not here, but we're still going to explore the history and impact of the objects that were left behind, and sometimes the things that aren't. So let's see what remains. As I mentioned, we are without Clarissa today. I had a whole episode planned, but as I was getting ready to dive in, I just knew I wanted to talk to her about it. And I couldn't get past that. So you'll get that next episode. Instead, today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to dive into the behind the scenes of collections and answer some questions that I get a lot and really look at, what remains of the whole collection. You're going to get some insight on the process of getting an object in the collection, how we decide, how we take care of the objects, and more. And we also can't have an episode without actually talking about stuff. So I'm going to bring out one of my favorites just for fun at some point. So stay tuned for that. I promise you're going to love it as much as I do. So let's jump in. Let's answer the big question. How big is the collection? If you took every single individual item, that's individual photographs, tiny pieces, everything, we're probably looking close to 4,000 items, which is pretty cool. And it's growing. We are constantly getting new things in. So we'll just have to keep updating that number. Now, going from there, the next question would be, what do we collect? Well, we collect a little bit of everything. So there is a key though. It has to do with Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, King George, Caroline County, or Stafford. So Planning District 16. That is our area. And we're actually the area museum because historically, if you go back, Fredericksburg was so small and so much of its story kind of bleeds into these other areas that it all just makes sense that it comes together. Now, how do we decide what goes in? How do we find objects? All of that. Finding objects is the fun part. Most of them come from people reaching out to me saying, hey, I have this or I found this. Sometimes we find things on auctions. Other times it's just going through antique stores. There are all different ways that objects come to us. And it is so thrilling when someone gives me a call or I see an email that says, hey, I have something you might want to see. Always makes my day, guaranteed. And so if you're like, hey, I might have something that's super interesting that the museum might want, contact me. Even if you think I'm going to say no, still do it because frankly, I like stuff. I just want to know about people's stuff. So you please always ask. So we've knocked out a couple of the main questions. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty. When an object comes to me and let's say it is, in my mind, perfect for the collection, what happens next? Well, I actually don't get final say. And that is done as a way to make sure that things are fair, that I am not being biased towards anything, that we're getting multiple views. So we have something called a collections committee, which is a series of folks who are very knowledgeable in Fredericksburg's history, who will take a look at these, listen to my case, ask questions, all of that to ultimately decide if it gets in. So the object does have to get a majority vote in order to make it into the permanent collection. So I kind of get that first glance at it where it's like, okay, well, this has nothing to do with Fredericksburg. I can say no there. But that's kind of that next step. So if the object does get through the committee, it is now added to our permanent collection. And what that means is it's not a loan, it's not temporary custody, anything like that. It is in the collection. It is ours. It is not going anywhere. And that is why when you do donate something, you have to sign a bunch of documents like a deed of gift to kind of transfer that ownership. That means we try to be very careful when we are bringing things in to make sure that it does fit that provenance, that it does fit the collections policy. So then we don't have to go back later on and deaccession something. And what deaccession means is to remove it from the collection. This is not something we do often. It happens under pretty rare circumstances. And when it does, this also goes through the committee for final approval. It is a very tedious process. And so it's something that we look to avoid altogether, because as a museum, we can't throw things away. We don't just get rid of things. There is an entire process behind that. So again, we try to be very intentional with the collection. But again, if you have stuff, definitely ask. It is better to ask than just wonder. So you can always contact me about that. Now, I want to answer a couple other questions that I get a lot. The first being, why should I donate to a museum? Well, let me tell you. So when you donate an object, you are now giving it a whole new life. So not only are you honoring the legacy of the person who might have had it before you or what it stands for, but you're giving it a chance to teach other people or remember something either good or bad. There's a lot of weight to that. And I know there's a big concern where, well, if I give this family heirloom, let's say, to a museum, it's just going to sit in a box and never see the light of day. And I can totally understand that sentiment. That is a big decision to make, especially when something means so much. But I have some reassuring things for you all. The first thing is, in storage is actually the happy place for objects. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, objects, they're so sensitive. They love to just kind of fall apart if you let them. They're very sensitive to light and moisture and touch. There's actually something in the archiving world called the agents of deterioration, and there's 10 of them that we look for that could actually impact the existence of an object, frankly. And so when it is in storage, we're protecting it from all of that. Some of the most dangerous things are light and moisture. And those two things, especially newspapers, fabrics, stuff like that, they want to fall apart really quickly. But if things aren't on exhibit, that doesn't mean that they don't get attention. Pretty much all of our objects are always being thought about for one reason or another. And what we're doing, understanding how important these objects are and what they mean to people and what accessibility means. We have all these really cool initiatives we're working on where we are digitizing the collection. So we are taking photographs, taking high quality scans, doing inventories, all of that. So eventually the entire collection is going to be available online for anyone to see and anyone to use as resources, which is really, really great because it's the best of both worlds. You're getting to see that object. You're getting to share it. We're getting to enjoy it, but also it is super safe. So that's also why in exhibits, you may see a real painting for the first half, and then there's a copy the second half. Or for example, our Lafayette letter, it's very fragile. And so for the protection of the letter, it couldn't stay out the entire length of the exhibit. So that's why there's a facsimile. It's all intentional and it's all done out of love. And talking about the love for objects, the funny thing about caring for a collection is I always say it's like caring for 4,000 toddlers. They always need something, whether it's getting one thing stabilized, then the next thing needs stabilized, or the humidity's too high, or the temperature's not quite right. It is a constant job to make sure that they are happy, which, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that. That's why you see dehumidifiers running, you see little monitors everywhere. It is all for the good of the collection. And I must say, I'm going to try to answer this. One of the top questions I always get is, what is your favorite object? I don't think I can actually answer that question. This collection has my whole heart. There are so many just beautiful and fascinating pieces. And yes, some are very dark and scary, but it's my job to care, and I would do anything for this collection. I've actually been told that in case of an emergency, I have to save myself. Like, that's ridiculous. The collection comes first. Sorry, Sam and Clarissa. You guys know how I am. You can't stop me. But yeah, if you were to actually tell me to answer this question, you'd end up with a list about 10 to 15 different things. And as I promised, I would have an object for you to talk about. And this is one of my favorite things. I'm pretty sure I've actually said that for almost all the episodes, so just get used to that phrase. Anyway, so this is a broadside. So this is a piece of ephemera, and ephemera is not meant to be kept. It's posters, it's small pieces of paper that you tend to hand out and then they get thrown away. Well, sometimes they get kept and sometimes they are absolute gems. So this is from August of 1880. This is a broadside from the Rappahannock, Fredericksburg, and Piedmont Telephone Company, and it is titled Rules for the Troubleman. And so what a troubleman is someone who, say, the power goes out, there's some type of emergency, they're out there troubleshooting, figuring it out. So they are the real heroes of the situation here. And so, again, in 1880, these are a set of rules that were posted for these men, and there are 13 of them here. So instead of reading all 13, I'm going to go ahead and pull out some of my favorites. Number 6, if you believe that a subscriber is a crank, forget it. All of them are wise enough to tell when a phone is not working right. Not every troubleman can do this. Number 7, be courteous and polite, and don't be afraid to hand out a little jolly occasionally. It doesn't hurt anybody's feelings to be jollied a little. And number 8, treat everybody as you'd like to be treated, not forgetting your horse. If you want to know the horse's side of it, take off your coat and hat some 0 day, hitch yourself to the same post with your belt, and stand there about 2 hours. Hereafter, don't forget his blanket. These are all fantastic. Again, those are my favorites. I will definitely be doing a longer episode on the telephone company because we have the switchboard, we have the rules here. So many cool electronics to talk about. So you'll have to stay tuned for that one. Again, we couldn't have an episode without actually talking about an object. So thank you for listening to me talk about the collection. Again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. Or if you want to know what the rest of these rules are, we'll go ahead and post them. Why not? So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on What Remains.